Chapter 32, we introduce a new character. Yesterday we ended off with Iyov is no longer speaking. He said everything. He dropped his mic. He's right. He's angry. He's upset. He's justified in it. And we're told that not only did Iyov, we said Tamu yesterday, Iyov had finished talking. And now in chapter 32, we're told, Vayishbetu shloshat hanashim ha'ela me'anot et Iyov ki hu tzadik be'inav. The three men, right, his other three friends that we've had the conversations with in the book, Bildad and Sophar and Eliphaz, they stopped talking. Why? Because he considered himself right. They realized there's nothing that they can say anymore. They can't convince him. They played enough ping pong, enough back and forth with their accusations and his defense of himself and his accusations against God, etc., etc. And now we're going to meet somebody else. Vayichar af Elihu ben Barachel Habuzi mimishpachat Ram be'Iyov chara'apo al tzadko nafsho me Elohim. So we introduce somebody who's very upset, who was angry, and his name is Elihu, the son of Barachel. Right, Barachel. You see in those words, Baruch El, Iyov, who said, "I will not curse God." So Elihu ben Barachel, who's from Buz. Buz is a city in Edom. Thoughts about Iyov and his friends. This is a story that happens in the place of the Edomites, and he's from a Mishpachat Ram, a family of Ram. Ram oftentimes mean of the importance, of significance, like Ram Venisa. And it tells us again, in case you didn't hear it the first time, he's very upset and he's angry. But who's he angry at? He's angry at Iyov, because Iyov thinks that he's better than God. But he's not only angry at Iyov in verse 3 in Pasuk Gimel, V'shloshet re'av chara apol asher lo matzu ma'aneh vayarshiu et Iyov. And he was also angry at the three friends who they were not able to properly condemn Iyov. They were not able to tell Iyov why he was wrong, why he was a rasha. Ve'elihu chika et Iyov bidvarim. And so we're told Elihu might have been from an important family. He might have been a person of stature, a person of wealth, a person of very great intelligence, but he was young. And because he was younger, he waited. So he showed at least some respect for those older than him, some respect for those grayer and those who had more life experience. But now he's angry. And so we're repeated again that Eliyahu saw that the three men had no significant reply for Iyov, and he is very angry. And thus in verse 6, Vayan Elihu ben Barachel Abuzi, Vayomar, Sa'ir ani liyamim v'atem yeshishim al kain zachalti, va'ira mechavot dei etchem. So he opens his mouth and he replies to them and he says, I'm younger than you. And that's why I was fearful and I was respectful and I held forth my speech and my ideas. I held back them from speaking them. But Amarti Yamim Yidaberu Virov Shanim Yodiu Chochma. Why did I hold them back? Because I said, let those of more advanced age, let those with more experience, let them declare wise things. Let them speak Chochma. Achein Ruachi ve'enosh v'nishmat Shaddai Tivinein. But we know that men have spirit, that Shaddai gives them understanding. Lo rabim yech kamuz kenim yavinu mishpat. And just because you're elderly doesn't mean you're wise, doesn't mean that your experience has taught you to be a wise and a discerning and an intelligent person with chokhmah. Right? There are people who are young who have great chokhmah, there are people who are old. So I respected the idea of waiting to hear from the elders. Think back to the book of Mishlei, where it tells you to listen, to ask the elders for wisdom. But not everybody who's old is so wise. And not everybody who's so old, Zakenim Yavinu, right in the end of 9 Mishpat. They don't necessarily understand judgment. They don't understand the world. They understand the way that God is doing things. Lachein amarti, shim'a li achaveh de'i afani. And therefore, I'm asking you to take a moment and listen to me. I want to share with you my beliefs, my understanding, my knowledge. I can't hold it back anymore. We're in Pasuk Yud Aleph, verse 11. And so I waited out your speeches. I gave ear to your ideas and thoughts, which you discussed and you look through and you try to understand. But as I listened to you, as I witnessed it, as I heard it, none of you could give proper replies to Iyov. None of you could argue with him. None of you could convince him. We're in Pasuk Yud Gimel, Pen Tomru Matzanu Chochma Al El Yitfenu Lo Ish. And what are you, right? I was worried. What are you going to say? You're going to say, we found the right way. God will defeat him, not man. And I didn't say anything. I didn't make a case against him. And I promise you, I'm going to speak something and I'm going to say something, but I'm going to say my own words. I'm going to tell you what I believe. You gave yours based on your experience, based on your knowledge, based upon your life and what you've been taught and what you know and what you've experienced. You didn't really convince him. You didn't properly teach him and convince him of his wickedness and convince him of the fact that he was judged properly by God or whatever it is. And I listened, and now listen to me. But your words, right, they were broken and you can no longer reply and words failed them. What you said, what you did wasn't right. I have waited till they stopped speaking, till they ended and no longer replied. Now that you guys are done, my turn. Now I will have my say. I will like to speak my words. I'm going to make them clear. Because I am full of words. The wind in my belly presses me. And here we're going to see right over and over again. This is a speech about a speech. Right? It's not the chapter's almost completed at this point, but it's a speech about a speech. Your words. You said your words. I didn't like your words. I'm going to give my words right over and over again. This is a lengthy introduction, which is showing him to be a little bit on the verbose side, a man of many words. He's not even going to give any of his arguments in this chapter. That's going to come into the next chapter. But now he's now starting to explain. Part of it is, right, he feels he's like a can with lots of pressure, and he's going to open up the can, and all the fizz, all the bubbles are going to come to the top. He's got the wind in his belly is pressing me. Look at verse 19. They didn't have soda. Hein vitni keyayin lo yifateach. My belly's like wine, not yet open, like jugs of new wine ready to burst. Interestingly, right? He says he's new wine. He's going to have new ideas, right? The pressure in the bottle, the pressure is too much for me. I waited. I listened. I waited for your wisdom. I waited, and you guys weren't able to convince anybody, weren't able to do enough. And now it is my turn. I'm going to do it. The cork is about to come open. The champagne's going to fly, or whatever it is, everywhere. Adabra. So let me speak and let me get some sort of relief from sort of right opening the bottle and letting all the pressure out. Let me open my lips and reply. I would not show any regard for any man or temper my speech for anyone's sake. I'm going to say what I want to say, whether you want to hear it or not. Because I cannot hold my speech back. I cannot temper it. God would soon carry me off. And so what we have here is not yet anything substantive said by Elihu, just that he feels the need to say something. We don't know that he's personal friends with these men. He may be. He's younger than them. He clearly doesn't know them in the same way, but he feels the need. I have to say something. I have to speak. I have to let out. I have different arguments. I have new arguments, and I can't hold back. And there is sort of this sense that we have of him where he has been very respectful, and even the speech is somewhat respectful. It's respectful in the sense that he's sort of asking them permission. He's asking them permission to speak, but telling them, don't cut me off in the middle. Let me say what I have to say. Let Iyov argue with me afterwards. You guys can argue with me afterwards. This might not be the protocol that I have a right to say anything, but I feel compelled. You guys have failed in your job of convincing Iyov of what he has done wrong and setting him back on the right path. And I think that for whatever reason, I know better. We'll see what he has to say. And interestingly, we'll see, giving it away, there's no response to him. So Iyov felt the need to respond to his friends. Iyov and the friends feel no responsibility to reply to this gentleman, to reply to Elihu. It doesn't matter. He's a non-entity. It's not important what he says, what he thinks is seemingly what's going on here ultimately. So Iyov is going to speak, is not even going to respond, and the friends are not going to respond. Ultimately, after Elihu, we're going to have God is going to come into the picture, not specifically for Elihu. Now, there are those who try to say, was he one of their friends? Did he show up later? Is this an addition to the book that was not there earlier in the book as the other things were? There are all sorts of questions that are asked about Elihu. The majority opinion is that this is not added later to the book, but it's an interesting sort of note when we think about it. Is Elihu like from the peanut gallery? Is this public because Iyov is outside, in the street sitting on his heap of dung as some of these arguments are going on? Is Elihu, is he sort of allowed to say this? Is this too much? We don't know, but clearly he feels that he's not somebody who's entitled to speak in this conversation, and thus, in a sense, he's asking for permission. But even as he asks for permission, he's not waiting for their permission. He's just going to get right in there and speak, and we'll hear what some of his arguments are and see if they're any different than the ones that have come before him.